On a loud, crowded General Motors factory floor in the 1930s, an elderly mechanic spent his shifts wiping oil off engines and running diagnostics. He was taking orders from managers half his age and earning an hourly wage just to keep food on his table. That broke, aging floor sweeper was Louis Chevrolet. The building he was sweeping belonged to a brand that was generating millions of vehicles and billions of dollars in revenue. His own surname was stamped onto the grille of every car rolling off the line, yet he couldn't afford to buy one. Inventing a superior product is entirely different from capturing its financial value. A brilliant engineer who misunderstands the mechanics of business can easily be separated from the wealth they generate. Louis grew up in France in the late 19th century. After his father died in a farming accident, he dropped out of school as a child and took odd jobs repairing bicycles to support his impoverished family. He spent his teenage years mastering gears and chains until he saw one of the first early automobiles rolling down a French street. He packed up and crossed the Atlantic to find work in the emerging North American automotive industry. He quickly transitioned from fixing engines to pushing them to their absolute limits. On the highly dangerous dirt tracks of the early 1900s, Louis drove with raw nerve, sliding around corners and taking massive physical risks to secure victories. He was soon surviving horrific crashes and winning high-profile races. Industrialists took notice. They saw that a fearless driver with a strong engineering background could legitimize a new car company. William "Billy" Durant was a ruthless capitalist who had recently been ousted from General Motors, the very empire he founded. He needed a prestigious, recognizable racing name to attract investors for a comeback. In 1911, Durant provided the capital, and Louis provided the engineering and his famous surname. Together, they founded the Chevrolet Motor Car Company. The partnership immediately hit a wall. Louis designed the Classic 6, a fast, powerful, complex machine loaded with high-end features. It was a masterpiece of luxury engineering, priced well out of reach for the average consumer. Durant had zero interest in selling expensive cars to the elite. He wanted to strip the vehicle down to its absolute basics, mass-produce it cheaply, and steal market share from Henry Ford's dominant Model T. Louis treated his automobiles as high-end performance art. Durant treated them as high-volume commodities. The boardroom became a daily battleground. The final break happened over something entirely trivial. Durant insulted the quality of Louis's cheap cigars. Offended and exhausted, Louis walked away. In 1913, he sold his company's shares and signed away the exclusive automotive rights to his own name for a total of $10,000. With Louis gone, Durant immediately stripped out the luxury features and pivoted the Chevrolet brand exclusively toward cheap, high-volume production. The mass-market pivot worked so well that Durant used the staggering profits from Chevrolet to execute a hostile takeover and buy back control of General Motors by 1918. This diverging line chart illustrates the financial fallout of that single contract. The blue line shows the Chevrolet brand valuation curving exponentially upward into the billions under Durant's control. The red line tracks Louis's personal wealth, which flatlines completely. Letting a bruised ego dictate a contract negotiation resulted in one of the worst business deals in corporate history. Louis refused to quit the industry. He founded the Frontenac Motor Corporation, determined to prove that his advanced engineering could dominate the track without Durant's money. He succeeded technically at first. Louis designed the advanced overhead valve engines that won the Indianapolis 500 in both 1920 and 1921. The victories were hollow. In 1920, his brother Gaston was killed in a violent crash on a racing track in Beverly Hills. Beyond the personal tragedy, the business model relied on a thin, high-performance niche. Building custom racing engines was a high-risk, fragile market. When the Great Depression struck, the luxury racing market completely evaporated. Orders dried up, and Frontenac was forced into bankruptcy. Superior engineering cannot survive an economic collapse without the mass market volume Louis previously rejected. By the mid-1930s, Louis had exhausted his options. Desperate for an income, he walked into a General Motors hiring office. He was hired back into the Chevrolet division as a low-level line mechanic and occasional consultant. He spent his long days repairing mechanical parts. totally unrecognized by the much younger employees working right next to him. Goals stamped with his surname multiplied across American highways. It takes immense skill to design the future, but skill alone does not secure equity. If you let pride separate you from your ownership rights, you can easily end up working an hourly shift for the empire you built.